So, internet fame and YouTubers, I was going to say random YouTubers where they end up in the news. There's been YouTubers in the news lately, and then it comes to find out that they were in fact YouTube famous, and yet there's many of us that in fact never heard of them before, right? It might be their last time being seen, who never knows. But like, subscribe, ID in the Discovery Channel. Yes, ID in the Discovery Channel. The links are provided below. Get that Discovery Go app as well as that ID Go app. You might want to get those two things combined and make them into one. So I was reading a story before this story. I was reading a story about a young individual, a male to be specific, that was in fact luring young females back around February, March of 2013 or so, luring them on Facebook. How you say, well, I got YouTube, but I also have Facebook, and let me figure out a way how I can get these young girls naked. He was in fact doing that. And now we have Kai the Hitchhiker. Hitchhiking isn't really all that safe, who knows, right? But with this situation, it's so weird and interesting how everybody has a background story. Some things end up not so good, so even more so tragic sometimes when you join a community. Nobody never knows. His success came later, right? Because of his interview over the attack situation that involved him using a hatchet, right? But you never know. Yeah, let me just get to this. So Caleb Kai, before I state this, for any of you guys that know about Kai the Hitchhiker, this story would in fact be considered old to you, but it's news to me because I had never heard of him, right? I've had internet since like 95, 96 and been on YouTube since the beginning of its formation. I still haven't heard of him, right? But the story is in fact old to you, but not to many of us. Because to say that his sentencing is in June 13th, 2019, is to say once the update comes, it's all fresh all over again. So Caleb Kai McGilvery, aka Kai the Hitchhiker, was a famous YouTuber who rose to fame online back in 2013 after intervening in an attack on a California utility worker, which he spoke of. He in fact spoke of his use of a hatchet to rid the attacker. Kai's video, that interview, in fact, how many views? It hit 1 million views. People like that type of stuff. So fast forwarding. So incident number 2. On May 12th, 2013, Kai met Joseph Galvary. I'm going to in fact cut Mr. Galvary's name short and just say Mr. G, if that's okay with you. So he in fact met Mr. G at a 73-year-old lawyer and military veteran, in which it was stated the two men had beers and Kai was invited to spend the night at Mr. G's or in Mr. G's guest room. Kai woke up hungover the next morning and that night called Mr. G to stay in the guest room again. That was according to Kai the Hitchhiker's legal support Facebook. Kai the Hitchhiker, I just wonder about who all he has stayed with, and if there has been any possible incidents of anything going wrong at any other time. I'm just in wonder. You got people that get mad and they're saying because they're in fact supporters of Kai this hitchhiker, and yet they don't really know him. That's not downing him. No, you don't never know a person's mental well-being, if they're stable, unstable, and all the rest, right? That's to say neither of us really know. I see and know where they're coming from, but to say that this sort of stuff keeps happening with him again, time and time again, involving or being involved in situations like this, and even use of a hatchet, and now that someone has died, is to say even Kai has to stand more questionable, right? That's just common sense logic, right? But yeah, so with him staying at the guest room of Mr. G, When Kai woke up the next day, he claimed he was drugged after his beer and Mr. G's naked body laid on top of him, which pointed to sexual assault. Kai went into fight mode to rid Mr. G. He went into fight mode to get rid of him, right? Police investigation indicates both Mr. G and Kai met in Times Square a day and a half before Mr. G's death. During the trial, Kai claimed self-defense. And although Kai claimed self-defense, a doctor by the name of Junaid of the Division of County Medical Examiner. Does that make sense? When I ran my words together, to be an authentic writer is to say, right? Okay, so the Division of County Medical Examiner, right, testified Mr. G's body, as in the measurements and all the rest, 5 feet tall, 5 inches. I ran a sentence together again. I'm in fact a writer. Sometimes writers do those sort of things. For those that when they question, well, why do you got paper? Because I'm a writer. Anybody that tells you they're a writer and they don't never carry paper or a notepad or keypad and all the rest, even on the phone, no, then they're not a real writer. They're just me, right? 5 feet 5 inches tall. He weighed 230 pounds and had a stent in his chest from a heart condition. Again, despite Kai's claims of his own self-defense, I just read to you the victim's measurements. Want me to say it again? 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighed 230 pounds, and had a stent in his chest from a heart condition. So again, despite Kai's claims of his own self-defense, the doctor stated Mr. G received from Kai several serious blunt force injuries to the face, to his neck, his arms, and his chest, all which include 3 facial fractures, 4 broken ribs, severe contusions, abrasions, and bleeding. The doctor stated that the injuries shown on Mr. G's body contradicted all in which Kai expressed. Sentencing, when it comes to the sentencing, is in fact scheduled once again, as I stated in the beginning of the video, he's scheduled for sentencing June 13, 2019, in which Kai will face up to life in state prison. But did you hear what I said about the because see, look, Kai is very questionable as a hitchhiker, because the very moment I saw him, I said, okay, that's to say he's a cool dude. He seems laid back, chill, hippie, of course, right? But something more is there. I don't know if it's underlying anger issues. I don't know if he doesn't carry out disputes well. I don't know what it is, right? But once again, this doctor, remember, that's a medical examiner, right? The division, I said. It's just something about Kai. I don't know what it is. I'm able to read through on people is what I'm trying to say. Some people can't. They'll look at somebody and take the person for face value and say, oh, well, he's just a cute kid, you know, simple in nature and this and this and that. And yet you're like, no, that there's more to that, right? So once again, that victim, in fact, had several serious blunt force injuries to the face, to the neck, to the arms, and to the chest, in which included 3 facial fractures, 4 broken ribs, severe contusions, abrasions, and bleeding. Now, that's in relation to him waking up with that grown man on top of his body, and yet, once again, I don't know what it is about Kai that stands kind of off or something. Soon as I turn the video on, because see, look, there's all type of quirky individuals. I am myself one, where I say, well, I go off, I get mad and go off. I could, right, depending on who it is, right, depending on what they say. And yet I don't know. Some might say that's shallow. Some might say, well, feel that. Well, that's judging. That's shallow of you to say that about him. No, some people you can read all the way through that something more is there despite his face or something. I don't know. Go look him up on YouTube and you will see what I'm saying, right? Could be drug use. It could have been weed, alcohol, who knows, right? But I'm just able to see through him or something. So Kai was arrested in Philadelphia 3 days after the murder when a barista working at a coffee shop noticed who he was, which led to that individual, in fact, contacting police. All of this occurred after an investigation by the Union County Homicide Task Force, Union County's Sheriff's Office, and Clark Police, which resulted in huge quantities of surveillance footage, digital cell phone data, and other types of evidence in which identified Kai as suspects. The information was there that led to him being suspect, right? So, as I stated before, hitchhiking can lead to anything. I don't know what would make that's just because, see, look, Kai once again was a hitchhiker. That's why his name is what it is, right? Hatchet wielding or whatever nickname they give him, right? Some people think that's funny, cute, right? That's what they call him. But for two men to be in, say, meet in Times Square and then they have beers and he willingly goes back to another grown man's house, is to say, what more did he expect with that? Because see, you're a grown man. Nobody knows. I said this for the 4th or 5th time. Nobody knows what the situation outcome is going to be once you're a grown man or even a woman going back to somebody else's place of residence and then you sit and drink beer with them and possibly get too heavily intoxicated or something. You don't know what that's going to lead to, right? So in that, I'm gonna in fact question, could Kai the hitchhiker have been a gay guy himself, or had bisexual tendencies or something? Even if that Mr. G drugged him and say forced himself up on Kai, right? You still want to question that, because I don't know if I was a grown man, if I really want to spend the night over somebody else's house of the same sex. I don't, because I think of serial killers, right? Not everybody thinks that way. And yet, once again, in my mind, I will be thinking, well, that's what I'm saying. That it has to be in question of the actual consumption of the alcohol beverages they were drinking, despite him claiming to have been drugged, right? But more than anything, you too want to question, what was his sexuality? You just do. Whether I piss some people off or whatever with that, right? Some people can't even think as logically as I can to scope through on something like that. Well, why didn't Kai say possibly stay with a female or something outside of a male? Because you don't know, people don't wake up, be decapitated and all the rest, right? Stood out to me, because he's not really the most manliest of the men, right? I'm not the most womanly of the women out here, right? I'm more male than anything myself, right? And yet even hippies have been known to be open-minded when it comes to sexual liberation and sexual freedom. You see where I'm going with this? And so the reason why I'm bringing this up, because to question a male's sexuality, whether he was raped or not, is to say, because some people in fact have internal thoughts or feelings or whatever about the same sex that sometimes they don't want to face, and what they'll do is they'll go out in the world and they will in fact attack and sometimes kill people with that. the fact that they might be gay or bisexual or whatever, right? And they can't internalize it or internally deal with it. So what they do, they'll take it out on others and kill them, and then use something else as saying they were trying to fight off somebody or something, when it could have been maybe they had sex with the person, got angry and bitter within themselves, and just say took it out on that person and killed them. And I wonder if this is one of those sort of situations, because yes, if I was raped, I could kill somebody myself. You never know, right? And yet for this coroner's or medical examiner to say no, there was more to it than self-defense, right? To say that, I already asked that, could Kai have been a violent person? But see, you don't never know if somebody is secretly gay or anything like that. You don't know how they're even handling their day-to-day. Some people have self-hatred with that. They just do. They walk around in the world, whatever, with that, right? The person could, and I'm trying to say, the person could have been a killer all along and say just went over to the person's house to spend the night to kill that lawyer. You don't know, because killers do all type of things and pick random people in the process, and sometimes can be hitchhikers, right? You got truck drivers out here that their intention is in fact kill people, such as hitchhikers, and then it can point to the other way around. Some of these hitchhikers could in fact be killers, and you and I, the public, not know that can be their intention. Well, let me hitchhike because I'm just mentally unbalanced or something more to that underneath all, and yet I might kill somebody and get away. You don't know. It points various ways with this situation. So where'd that piece of paper go? So with the questions for me asking, so Kai the hitchhiker, I said that about how he appears to be fun loving, right? Easygoing and all the rest. And that's why his fans and his supporters feel that the whole situation is BS about him going to trial. Well, all of us got two sides to us. Side we show the public, and the other side that we don't, right? That's just real, right? So the lawyer, what I'm in question of, that Mr. G, if he had a history of drugging other men. I wonder if he had a history of drugging other men, and yet still, I don't know why. It just, the story don't, for some unknown reason, the story don't really, I don't know why. It don't really seem like it points in that direction that Mr. G, and I have never even met him. It just don't seem like it or something. Like that man didn't drug him from the beginning or something. I don't know. I could be wrong. Could be very wrong. But it just seemed like that was an excuse or something to kill him. Like, well, let me set something extra there to make it seem like this happened to me, and yet it may not have. That lawyer drugging Kai. It just don't, I don't know. I could be wrong. It just don't seem likely. So when I asked about him having anger issues, and I said because that points in the direction of where he used the hatchet before on the other individual, just the whole, I mean, because anything can happen where you're forced to take matters into your own hands, as in fight off somebody to get rid of them in somebody else's situation, and yet I don't know. Because, see, I will start to question even his home life. I do that with everyone. Well, what was his background? And what's the point of him hitchhiking from the beginning? Was there any issues within his home as a child? Was he properly loved and cared for, or what? Was there any molestation or what of him when he grew up? I'm saying, when he was young, growing up. What could lead to that, and even have led to any drug abuse, if there was any hidden drug abuse or Like I said, sometimes there, see, because I know how famous people, and I said this how many times in my videos, I know how famous people do their deeds, whether it's behind the scenes and all the rest. I know how things go down and how stuff be hidden away from people that support famous people. Even that can point to YouTubers, because that points in with celebrities as well. And I'm saying this because oftentimes people come to love people and they really think they know them because they're on screen or something like that, or on YouTube, or walking down the street scene being filmed by the news or by paparazzi. They think that they know them. So when something more comes out, is to say, well, no, that's not Kai. No, that's not whoever. No, that's not Oprah. No, that's not Janet. No, that's not whoever. Donald Trump. No, that's not Obama. No, that's not whoever. Right. You never really know a person. You just don't. Unless you've been in the four walls of their house or wherever, their place of work or wherever, you don't know them as a person, as their personality type and all the rest. To come out and say, well, because I just feel like anybody is capable of doing anything. Myself as well. Dear viewer, leave me a comment in the comment section about that, as in, if I get angry, it's to say I might tell you off. I just said that. Some people won't even go that far and tell you they would do that, right? I don't know how people look at fame and then think, well, you know, a famous person is famous, so they will never do anything. Don't be so blinded by fame. That don't ever do that sort of thing, because sometimes famous people, just because they're famous, is why they will do certain things. They feel like, well, now they're above the law and they can get away with whatever just because they're famous. Because even when I watched a video and Kai was saying, you know, basically, let me go, let me be free, and yet he know what he did is to say, well, he felt like he was above the law. Many of them do. And then what supporters do, they just come out and say, yeah, I'll support the bad behavior of you killing people and not making you face no time. No, Kai doesn't need to face, I hear some people, Kai doesn't need to face a year, 2 years, or longer, or maximum with that, right? He just doesn't, because he's Kai. No, that's what's wrong with the system already. Taking up for people that you know that are wrong to begin with, especially when it comes to taking a life. I have no more to say about that. So leave me a comment in the comment section, dear viewer. Nothing can ever go right with that type of because I just wonder, and I said that already, him being a hitchhiker, if there have been more deaths, any other people he may have killed that we don't know about. Kai could be a serial killer and we not know. His supporters not know. But they'll want to fight police and the judge and everybody else's say and take up, and yet they haven't lived one life in that man's, or one day in a man's presence, or wherever he stays or hitchhike to. Being a hitchhiker too, that's a no-go. It helps to wait and see. And even when there's supporters out here that even if you go to jail after you done killed people or whatever, right, even possibly silently kill people, right, they'll still go and support you while you're serving life in prison, and get online and bash people and make all excuses for you. With that is to say, well, some people, they might in fact need to be questioned with their mental state. So we're on investigationdiscovery.com. ID logo sits up in the far left corner. Live now, 48 hours on ID season 14. Unlocked episodes. To gain access preview is to press the play button right here. The add to watch later is to click the plus sign. Betrayed, season 3, episode 8. You can in fact come on here to investigationdiscovery.com yourself to do a preview as you would like and as you choose. It's recommended that you do that sort of thing. On last night, to gain access to this is to provide your provider, as in who you subscribe to. That's the only way you're going to get in with that. Shouts out to Lieutenant Joe Kenda, as well as Paula. Unlock series. Recommended for you. There's always something good when it comes to IED. Little Madeline. When it comes to, because see, they were saying that there's a likely suspect. There's so much more that's gonna more likely come out in relation to her case. That's how it happens. It's always good to bump into something after things take so long and you say, well, man, can something come and bring a conclusion? You don't know where that's going to pinpoint. Or maybe that's just set there, because I can't even go into detail with the things that I know. Some things you think, well, it's a suspect, okay. And then you never come to find out that that individual could have been placed there just to hold the public over for a few more years until they try to figure out the things the public don't know. Crime feed news. Crime feed. To gain access to the crime feed is a click right within hearing. You would in fact be directed to the outside to crime feed. Crimefeed.com, full of the latest, greatest in murder and mayhem. To receive a newsletter is to type your email address in and click next, and you would in fact receive that from Investigation Discovery, the newsletter. So yes, leave me a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think and feel about this situation. Have you ever heard of Kai before? Kai the Hitchhiker? Is there any other YouTubers where you heard disaster stories on? From time to time, like I said before, I bump into them. Like, well, wow, who is that? Never seen that person before. Or who is that? That's what happens. And see, people don't understand too about internet fame, such as YouTube fame. Just because you make it famous, don't know that everybody's gonna know who you are. As in, just right here on the platform, several people might in fact know you, but remember, we're standing at over 7.6 billion or so people on this earth. Like, fame sounds good, and I'm sure that it is good depending on the usage. It should be a good useful tool for important matters or important means, right? But once again, that man was in fact YouTube famous, as well as the other individual that was preying on young girls, and yet in fact many of us still don't know who these people are. Just like that mother that was beating on her children for YouTube and all the rest, right? To say that, oh, I'm famous, is to say everybody's gonna know my name. That's not specifically true, because you could be famous and yet to only a small percentage. It's not like being Kim Kardashian or somebody. I wouldn't know, and yet I would, right? I'm saying on here on YouTube, I wouldn't know. When it comes to outside, I would know, because yeah, something about that is not right. When I look at this man, I'm saying, to be YouTube famous is to say, well, you're just part of that community, and yet on the outskirts, nobody knows about you. That has to be stand in question as well. Because even finances can be placed to that. That's when it goes big, as in that side of the world I know about. People like Kim Kardashian and endorsements and all the rest. That side, Oprah Winfrey, Janet Jackson, and all the rest, when it comes to that level of fame, I know about. More so than just being famous part of a community, such as, well, I'm a YouTuber, part of the YouTuber community, right? It's to say, well, if you do make it famous, where else can you go outside of YouTube so that people actually know that you're YouTube famous? Possibly do some endorsement deals or something like that, right? That's not to, because see, people do all type of things, and I said that already. I'm on my 10th time of saying that, and little do they know they just famous within a community, and not outside. And yet I've been on YouTube for this long and not heard of other people outside of them. That's to say it's locked down. As in, once you're closed in on the community, I guess that's the end of that, right? Right? You're not Kim Kardashian, you're not that big, you're not Kanye West, you're not whoever, you're not all that. Helps to open your eyes and be clear in a statement with that. So I think that's all to be said for now. And I think I am gone. Enjoy your day. I'll enjoy mine.